Conyers was next. So, and I will be, for those that I've tested, I am working on summary reports, but obviously with the event, and again, I apologize, in January 7th and February, I was on a lot of medication, dealing with a lot of pain, and I just, wasn't making phone calls. So obviously I'm trying to catch up from 3 months of falling behind. So, and again, what you see is the fingerprint, and there's something called a pyrogenic or petrogenic ratio. And you look at all these it's identifying the chemicals in a specific fingerprint. So if we know the fingerprint in and around ground zero, and we can go 30 miles out and that fingerprint matches. When you hear the narrative, it's ubiquitous in your home, you're sick, and it's the same thing in East Palestine. I didn't even need to do any testing or look at anybody else's. None of the health symptoms were ubiquitous in the environment until the event happened. And all this data is still preliminary. It's subject to review and change because we're still analyzing and going through a lot of it. And here's the ash and soot from an example. So I won't get into all these details now because it can be very complicated. But we try to do things simply. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 HPCDF, that is a dioxin that was present. These are other dioxins that were present. So what we look at all that is we compare. So you're going to hear, dioxins are everywhere. You had your July 4th cookout, is from that. Well, the fingerprint from that is a lot different from the fingerprint of the Biolab event. And what, there are those that count on throwing all this gobbledygook at you, but you actually can simplify this. That's why I talk about the fingerprint. And this is close to Sheena's house. And again, this is very helpful. And I won't rattle off all these and what these mean. Again, the fingerprint, you can see the compounds present. And you've got benzoapyrene is one of the most toxic polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons.
What's it called, Scott?
It's called benzoapyrene. See, there are all these indexes with dioxins. It's called the TEQ. It's a toxic equivalency, because if you've heard of Agent Orange, it's TCDD. Everything's relative to that. On polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, benzoapyrene is the most toxic, so you can calculate an index.
And we've got that from the Biolab?
Well, it's the fingerprint.
It's in the area.
We know that was in the soil near that. And again, it's about the fingerprint then to prove it's from Biolab.
Right.
But, and again, what you guys have that East Palestine didn't have is that there you had, like, I don't get into particle sizes, you have soot and ash that invaded your property. So for those of you, preserve all your soot and ash, reach out to me, keep it sealed up, preserve your furnace filters, if you can, in a trash bag that is not scented, and just preserve it. You want to preserve as much evidence as you can. And then Larry Cox and Chris Lovejoy, that's testing at Chris's and Larry's property, and you can see them. They're right there. Why are they? Their results are so key because it's about the fingerprint. They're so close to Biolab. Literally, when I was testing there, we could see Biolab. The property line was like 50 feet away. And these are the various dioxins present at Larry Cox's. And if you see this, all the blue, there's hits on everything. So we look at the highest amounts, and then we can compare this with around the whole area. And then the surface residues. So I did a little analysis. I took post Biolab, and these are right near ground zero. That's actually Chris Lovejoy's. That's East Palestine, a table in East Palestine. And I wanted to compare, because the surface swabbing, to the best of my knowledge, the only one that's done it other than one other person. And if you want to get a background on East Palestine, I've also a whistleblower of the Government Accountability Project. There is a declaration under oath that I gave, and also Stephen Petty, who was the class action expert. Believe it or not, I had no idea who he was. I was asked to participate, and it was still X at the time. And I met him on X, and then he started calling me, and we started talking. But the class action attorneys in East Palestine, unfortunately, have prevented him from revealing his results on anything. So, but if you, and again, this is about Conyers, but if you want to understand some background, go to the Government Accountability Project website and read those declarations. What we're trying to do is trying to prevent history from repeating itself. And the good news is we're still early on here in Conyers. So I took these samples and I compared them. So to put things in perspective, and again, these are the surface wipes, just to give me an index. Now, you're going to hear a lot about all concentrations, all this, that, and the other thing. Right now, concentrations are irrelevant. It's about the fingerprint and what chemicals do we find. So you see the East Palestine quartz table. Think of this as an index. It's 0.036. Well, Chris Lovejoy, the hood on his hood was 752% higher. Now, everything is always preliminary, subject to change. You literally can't have enough data before you make a final conclusion. But just like East Palestine, what I'm trying to do is get more information and identify hot zones. And as you see 30 miles out, there's definitely a hot zone close to Biolab from what I can see from the preliminary data. But as you get out further, some of the soil's coming back. Potentially within background areas. So, but that's helpful. And we're also getting controls too, because you need controls where you know the plume didn't impact anything. But this is a relative comparison. This is helpful as a comparison to East Palestine. So it appears as though there was definitely close to ground zero a big impact.
Scott, I got a question. I heard on the news and heard people actually say that when it all went down in the fire engines, a lot of the metal, the paint from fire engines would deteriorate, right? So I live 5 miles from here, and now around my neighborhood, listening to our neighbors and all of our metal outside of our house is deteriorating. It's collapsing. We had a garden, netted garden, the top of it, we came home, it was just laying there, fell. Then you can see where it broke off. Near our roof, and our neighbor's roof, the metal, I forget what it's called, but the metal was all hanging.
There was literally an acid fog, and there's something called a windrose where you go back and unfortunately it was very still with the wind, and then it was so that fog just kind of stayed there, and I hear that repeatedly. The rusting, the attacks, you know.
For 1 month. 1 month that fog was there.
Yeah.
1 month.
Why furnace filters matter? Instead of taking a biopsy of your lungs to see what you're exposed to, the next best thing is the furnace filters. And there's some good background and some media articles about experts in mixtures of chemicals, and you'll see about the EPA. But what a lot of people don't know, the EPA has a really good dioxin expert scientist by Brian Gullett that was never allowed to talk. And we did a FOIA request, and there's internal emails, why aren't you looking for dioxins, you know? It all ties in, you can't find what you don't look for. If you don't find, you know, if you don't look for it, you can say everything's okay. But here's where we get into the particle sizes. Now, this is the EPA dioxin expert, published research, and the particulates emitted were 2.5 microns or less. And this is from burn pits and what he's done, where all these chlorinated compounds are burning. So, to put things in perspective, a human hair is 40 microns. again, this gets back to why the ash and the soot is so significant here that they didn't have in East Palestine. So at 40 microns, your human hair is 50 to 70. You're talking about particles of 2.5 microns or less, and particles in between 2.5 microns and 50. So they're not visible. Well, if it was running to it, I mean, your furnace filters, and again, I'm gonna get into the furnace, I'm gonna answer this question with the next 2 slides, actually. So when it comes to particles that go into your respiratory system, this, less than 2.5 microns, the pulmonary effects of small particles. So this shows how, and this is why furnace filters, I learned a lot in East Palestine about furnace filters, and believe it or not, I'm the only one some HVAC companies have reached out to me, because I'm the only one with furnace filter data from a real world incident. And what we learned is all these MERV things, probably 80–90% goes through. So what is left, that residue, is helpful for identifying what you may have been exposed to. Again, not about concentrations. That'll tell you what you potentially were breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And here is what I did is I tested all these different MERV filters in East Palestine and really learned a lot about an air filter would trap particle size 0.3 to 1 microns. Most people have MERV 10 and below. So the filters are only you're gonna get less than 20% removed. That's the reality of a lot of furnace filters. That's why I say I talk about my laboratory being the real world and real world disaster, starting with my own. Anybody can do a test in the confines of air conditioning with no moving wind or no reality. But filters, the thing is, if you really want to get like a HEPA filter or something, sometimes they're not practical in a house because you get so much back pressure.
Will you be putting these images on the website?
Yes, I'll have a PDF. So 2 more slides. And so this is a picture of what the crops look like that were impacted after that fog and other soil, and I've got soil samples coming in. Can't say anything definitive now, but these crops are actually from this area right here.
From where?
Right there.
Oh, wow, that's a good distance.
5 miles. I know because it's my house.
Your wife wanted you anonymous, not anymore.
You're gonna find out on my channel anyway.
Scott, one of our patients went home, and inside of her home, her plants were dead. Inside.
Did she save those?
I don't know.
That makes-
Really?
Well, if the plants are dying inside your home, it talks about
Exactly.
the air intake and everything else. And again, they say declare everything safe, but that smoldering burn was still going on my 3rd trip. That smoldering burn is the worst thing you can have for all these contaminants, especially dioxins.
How long did that go on, the smoldering burn?
I'm trying to remember. I was just talking to somebody about
It was a
it. I think
long
3 weeks. And then I also want to say this
was
is
a month.
a residue on top of someone's ceiling fan.
Oh, yeah, I see
So,
it.
in the residues that still are on surfaces, I have, taken a sample of that too. Because people continue to see weird residues. So that, now my final slide. I learned this from Dr. Beatrice Gullum she said the 4 Ds of public relations. And after what I've experienced in East Palestine, I have added a fifth D. So here are the 5 Ds of public relations. You know, Jim Morrison said, whoever controls the media controls the mind. Why does the EPA spend so much on PR? Why does Norfolk Southern, Biolab, and everyone spend money on PR? And you can see a revolving door of ex-media people, so it's all about, so here are the 5 Ds, and this is very consistent, and you may see Biolab do it. First of all, you delay getting anything out, you deny it, then you discredit it,
Right.
then you dismiss it, and I added the 5th D after experiencing a lot of fun stuff at East Palestine, defame. That's the next thing. So when you know, so that's why you see everything going through a PR. You know, back to the EPA, they have very quality experts in the EPA. You shouldn't have to talk. You should be able to talk to Brian Gullett, the dioxin expert. He should be able to come here and talk to you, not have to deal on email with a public relations person. So with that being said,
I'm 7.5 miles away. So, is that still a hot zone?
I'd have to, you know, again, everything's still preliminary. I'm happy to talk to you afterwards
Okay.
and see which location you are and see what we can do. So in East Palestine, I was fortunate enough to meet Mindy Bish, and so now I can take this up and consider. Mindy Bish is the managing partner of the Keenan Law Firm, and that's, you know, Mr. Keenan, Don Keenan, very well known, based in Atlanta. So that's really good news for an option, and just like I said, I can, as my own personal injury, it's up to you guys to interview lawyers and what makes sense for you and your family. So I'm going to turn it over to Mindy now to talk, who's working in conjunction with David Graham, who many of you know.
I have one question. Back to me asking about the chemical list. So that list, just in your experience from East Palestine too, when the firefighters have to come out and fight any fire, it is a requirement by motion that you have to give the county a list of all materials in that building. So I know that we are going after Biolab, but Rockdale County is responsible for their firefighters and for getting that information to their firefighters. So like you said, they're outside of their trucks and those. And so how do you get that? That's what I'm asking.
That is a great question and a lead into Mindy, because I've also heard that Rockdale owns the building, and that's a legal question for a potential responsible party.
Oh, yeah.
But I can tell you, that list they submitted was very old, and as Cheryl knows, that we have every reason to believe that's an incomplete list.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. As people were walking in, I kept thinking, God, I hope everybody shows up. You know? I even put on my attorney clothes for you. So I am the managing partner of the Keenan Law Firm. Just by way of introduction, because this is really not about me, it's about you. I've been a lawyer for 33 years. I got 2 boys, I got 3 grandkids. I opened my own practice. I went and I met with Mr. Keenan thinking I would semi-retire. And instead of semi-retiring, I ended up being the managing partner of 2 different law firms instead of the one that I was. So my family really believes that I will just never retire. I just figure I'll keep doing it as long as I can help people and I feel good about what I'm doing. So I've got 2 boys, I've got 3 grandchildren, I've got a law firm that I opened in 1998 as a single mom that still functions. Sometimes I look around and think about all the people that I've taken care of through that law firm, and I can't quite figure out how that happened, but it did, and it's still doing what it was doing. I now have 2nd-generation lawyers, of friends of mine that I saw get born that are going to law school and working there. It's kind of a phenomenal thing to see. And I'm the managing partner of the Keenan Law Firm. Our building is right down across the street from the Ferris wheel. Don always says he never went on the Ferris wheel because he watched it being built and wouldn't get him on that, it was like depended on it. Don was gonna be here with all of you today, but he had an emergency, so he wasn't able to be here. His home is now in Florida, so he goes between here and the Panhandle. I'm usually out there too, so David and Scott can tell you it's the first time they've seen me in regular clothes and all the time that they've known me. So, what I want to tell you is this. When I went out, let me go back. I am a trial attorney. It's all I've ever done. I'm not a class action attorney. I've never wanted to be a class action attorney. I wanted to have clients who actually liked me when I was done with their case. You know Mr. Keenan, and if you don't, you can look him up. He's never been a class action lawyer. And he's fought for the children of Atlanta for almost his entire career, which has spanned almost 50 years here in Atlanta.
Like what for the like,
Well,
what do you mean, children of
I
Atlanta?
can tell you that Mr. Keenan was involved when the boys were being murdered in Atlanta back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey introduced him to the mothers who wanted somebody to advocate for them, to make the police figure out who was murdering their sons, and Mr. Keenan was involved. He has been, he argued to the Supreme Court the law that allowed parents of foster children to sue if their child in foster care was harmed or killed. Before then, if your child, for whatever reason, ended up in foster care and something happened to them, as the parent, you had no rights. So he went down and he saw the autopsies and he was involved, and he fought all the way up to the Supreme Court so that they had to be answerable for what they did with foster children, and that was his case. He heads the Keenan's Kids Foundation. For years, he would take foster children down to the basketball games, when you had a hockey team, to the hockey games, and take foster children down. He always said he had no children of his own, but he had plenty of children. He worked with the family that brought in all the Down syndrome children and helped build their house. He also he handled baby cases when babies were born with either birth defects or when they died in childbirth, which were some of the most difficult cases that there are. He handled those birth cases when nobody else was taking them, and he handled those. He was the youngest member of what we call the Inner Circle, which is the top 100 plaintiff lawyers across the country. So he was the youngest member accepted into the Inner Circle. He was in his 30s, and he's been an Inner Circle member for almost 40 years. When the top attorneys go to trial around the country, it is not unusual for them to call Mr. Keenan. He has a book, 100 Ways to Keep Your Children Safe, about playgrounds. He has publicized that book, and at his office, you can walk in the door and get that book for free. And it talks about playground safety for children, which is something he's done, and he's written an updated volume, which will be volume 2, that he hands out for free, because that has to do with children's safety, and he can't say he cares about kids and then charge money for a book about children's safety. He started doing focus groups in the early 70s when he was doing criminal work, when they thought focus groups was jury tampering. So if you Google, you'll find a very old 60-minute session with Ed Bradley, where he was talking about doing focus groups. So he's been an innovator in the legal field, and he does focus groups for other attorneys when they're going to court. Some of the names that you would recognize, but I'm not going to say, because that's not the point. But he is what I refer to, he's the GOAT. You know, he's that guy who sits up there And the really, really fine trial attorneys know who Don Keegan is. And that's who he is. So although I've practiced 33 years, I have my share of 7-figure verdicts and 8-figure settlements, I still sit next to it when he asks, but would gladly sit in the back seat just to be taught just a little bit of what he knows and what he sees. And that's probably why I still practice law, because he opened doors of things I never truly understood and made me a better lawyer for the people I represent in ways I never imagined I could. Because as a single mom, I didn't have a mentor. I was just going to work, trying cases, taking care of my kids. And he saw something and he nurtured it. And I'd be, to be honest, forever grateful. You know, he changed my life. And he changes a lot of young lawyers' lives. He has a college. He brings lawyers to the beach, and he freely gives away what he's learned over his career. Because a lot of lawyers don't do that. It's like their secret. He doesn't want to die with his secret. He wants to die knowing that he left good lawyers in his path who nurture and understand what he's learned. And I'll tell you, you know, he's an Irishman with blue eyes from South Carolina. Sometimes I just think it's that southern charm. If only I had a southern accent, I would have gotten so many more verdicts than I ever got, you know? So, you know, that really is it. I work with him because he's a master at what he does. And who, among all of us, with what we love to do, wouldn't want to work with the master of what we love? You know? And I always say, you always know, because when my grandkids come to visit, they're always attracted. Because he, you know, don't tell him I told you, but he looks like Papa Smurf sometimes, so they head right to him. You know, he's just as mischievous as they are. So when I got to East Palestine, I got there in December of this last year. And what I heard over and over again was the class action had already settled. Sounded like a lot, $600 million for a railroad company that makes $90 million a day on that railroad line. So they settled that case for less than what they made in a week. And what they told everybody there was, you'll never find a lawyer, you'll never be able to prove that your injuries and your illnesses were from us. We're your only chance. And so I heard people say, I wish we had heard from you sooner. That's what they said. And we have about 285 of those families. We have 800 clients. I have done Zoom calls with my families since right before Christmas. I'm not done yet. I spend about an hour and a half with each family, getting to know them, finding out what their needs are, getting them medical care, putting their cases together for them. But I don't want to be too late again. And that's why I'm here. I don't want to be too late. I want you guys to know you have a choice. You have a choice as to how your case will go. For some, the class action's just fine. Google it, you'll find out. The average class action will get you about $50 to $500. In East Palestine, they gave up $70,000 per household for their houses and all their furniture, and they deducted from them anything they had already received. So some people ended up owing more instead of getting money. And they're in houses they don't want to be in, and they didn't get enough to move. So they're still living in houses that they don't know, are they poisoning me? So we're working on trying to get them out, because that's what they want, is out. We have lung cancers, lung cysts, breathing problems, blindness. We have female issues. You don't have to tell me, but I will tell you that if you've noticed that your monthly cycle is heavier, welcome to toxic exposure. Things that you don't even know are a result of toxic exposure. There's a laundry list. I had to go and say, stop judging, just tell me what's different. Dioxins attack the mucous membranes, nose, lungs, and for women, your reproductive area is all mucous membranes. We have cysts, and a lot of it is 2 years later. We have miscarriages. We have trisomy 18, babies that died a week in, that people said you can't prove it. Yes, we can. We have a baby that was born after 38 weeks at 5 pounds. At 15 months, that baby weighs 24 pounds. We have 8 deaths now that we can trace. And they told them all, you can't prove it. Well, sure, you can't prove it if you don't hire the right experts. But you can if you do. Same way that Roundup was able to prove those cancers were from what they were from 20 years later. Of course you can. We have the experts. I'm not going to, because you're all recording, and I don't want the defense to know who I got. So you will find that I don't do a lot of social media posting because I play everything really close to the vest. Information is power, and I ain't giving away power. Power, you know what? Info costs them money. You want info? Pay me money. Pay my clients money. You can have info. No money? No info. That's how I deal. That's how Keenan has taught us to deal. What I can tell you is East Palestine, we were lucky. Right now the defendants are all fighting among themselves in federal court. Norfolk Southern wants to tell the jury, here's the best part, they just told the jury that they settled the case and they admitted responsibility. Never mind that the settlement agreement says they're not admitting responsibility, but just a small fact. And they're all fighting about who should contribute to the $600 million, because apparently Norfolk Southern doesn't think they should have to pay it all. As if less than 7 days of their earnings was too much to pay. And so they're not paying attention. We're hiring experts, we're getting our clients treatment, because what we want to do is we want to be ready to go by the time they're done fighting. Now we have a chance here. We have 2 years. The statute of limitation is 2 years. If you want to know how the Keenan law firm works, we want your cases to be ready. We want our clients to be fully diagnosed, all their damages in order, all their experts hired, and then we'll file the lawsuit. We want to walk into court at the first court hearing after the lawsuit is filed, when the judge says, how much time do you need to get ready? And we want to answer, none. We're ready. That's how Don Keenan handles a case. Foot on the gas pedal from the moment the lawsuit's filed, and you never take it off till you get the thing to trial. We will not be talking about mediation. We will not be talking about settlement. We will be talking about full value, period, and full disclosure. Here's what I'll tell you. The class action lawyers here are the same ones they had in East Palestine. So, I will be here. I can answer your questions. I can tell you that I am confident that we can represent you, that I'm confident that we can help you figure out what your losses are, what your health issues are, get you to doctors who specialize in toxic exposure, pulmonologists, internal medicine doctors, gynecologists, geneticists, you know, all the litany. You want heartbreak? Heartbreak for me was talking to a 31-year-old woman and hearing her say, I don't want to have any more babies. I wanted a big family, but I did this to this child. It's my fault. It broke I'm a grandma, so it breaks my heart, because it's not her fault. They didn't care. I could also tell you that they built that plant exactly where they built it, and they did it for a reason. They research. They figure out who's more likely to sue or cause us a problem if something goes wrong. I got the data. They don't build those things where there are rich people.
They sure know.
They don't run railroad tracks with poison where there are rich people.
Sure
And
know.
believe it or not, in the 70s, they did a study. They know exactly what they're doing.
They sure do.
So, this is where you are. I can tell you that the class action lawyers that are here in East Palestine, I'm picking up the furnaces that they never wanted, the furnace filters, all the evidence. I'm talking to all the clients they never talked to. And the thing they gave everyone, and what I'm doing is I'm giving you facts. I'm not, for some people, they think that class action was beautiful. They're not sick, they got money just based, and if I could get everyone to stop talking about how far away you were from the fire, and just tell me, are you sick?
Right.
I don't care
Right.
how close or far away you were. I care if you're sick, if you've been injured. How far away you were, that's what the defense wants to play. I can't tell you how many people have said, in East Palestine, I'm 2 miles away by the crow flies. I don't care. Are you sick? Are you sick? Do you have trouble breathing? Do you have bronchitis? Have you had pneumonia? Do you get nosebleeds? Are you as a woman having longer periods or more blood? Do you have a child who started her period early? We have an 8-year-old. All right? Are you having cysts that you don't understand? Who's having miscarriages? That's what I care about. I don't care where you live. I don't care how far away you are. I care if you're sick. I care how many mothers are sitting in this room whose babies lived with them when this fire happened. How many? How many nights do you turn around and look at your children and wonder when the other shoe will drop? Wonder what's going to happen to them. I care about that. Money can't take care of that. And it'll never go away. And God forbid they have a child that has a disability. You'll never know. You'll never know. I care about that. I don't care about how far away you live. But in the class action, everything was about how far away you lived. So I'm just here to tell you you have a choice. And what you do with that choice is up to you. I always tell people I'm here if you want us. I'm not here if you need us, because frankly, I think you all need us, you know? So we have a team. I team with David. I also team with a lawyer by the name of Jedediah Bressman in Ohio. I made Jedediah join our team because he's doing exceptional work in East Palestine, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Don Keenan thinks his work and his research work is excellent. We have, as I told you, the team of experts in place, and I will start my conversations with you tomorrow, working with who do you need to see, what are your health issues, what are your business issues, what accountants do I need to prove them, how do we button up our claims, and protecting you from the class action lawyers who want nothing more than to get a certain percentage you to say okay, because otherwise they have no use. They took about, what did they take in fees on the class?
$180 million in fees and costs, which we're appealing at 670.
They took $180 million. That's their fee. And it won't be any different. Now, there's some people I told you who got $70,000 for their property and they're fine because they don't think there's anything wrong. And that's okay. Good for them. But if you're sick, you have a choice.
I suspect some people did hit with the Biolab fires more than once.
Yep.
Yeah.
The statute of limitations in Georgia is 2 years from the date you knew or should have known that there was hazardous material that made you sick. So if there was I saw all the fires, right? So what all those fires get you, by the way, is punitive damages in our complaint. Oh, by the way. But if the argument's made that no doctor ever told you you had any medical issues related to those fires before, and you're only starting to understand now the physical toll of those prior fires, then we will try to buckle them all in. On the you didn't know until you knew.
So like, what if you don't have money to go to?
Oh, I pay the cost. If you're my client and I need you to be diagnosed, we take care of getting you diagnosed. We fly you if we gotta fly you, we pay your hotel room, we get you to the expert so that you can be diagnosed.
I was wondering if you could address the tort reform issue.
There's Don Keenan and his system. Here's the thing. The truth of the matter is, today it was you guys, it was East Palestine 2 years ago. It was you guys last year. It was California last year. Is anybody, tort reform on these kind of cases is not an issue.
They had just really broke the bill. And I think it's,
It's not an issue. We'll be asking, by the way, for punitive damages. In East Palestine, not only did we sue the railroad and all of their people, we sued the village of East Palestine for not warning its citizens about what was on that train. We sued the school district that had kids going to school even when they knew it was unsafe and the kids were having nosebleeds. We sued the health department that refused to provide medical care to the people who needed tests. So, and we've sent out government claims against the CDC and the EPA for failing to do their jobs. So what I can tell you is I am not above inviting everyone to the party. So, you know, now the EPA and the CDC, you know, the CDC happens to be in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And since Don Keenan happens to be the lead trial attorney, and since he seems to have practiced in Atlanta for a number of years, I'm thinking we might file that puppy right here in Atlanta.
Yes.
You know, where Don Keenan might just know a few people. You know, why file it in Ohio where the judge who already settled the class action, if we can file it in Don Keenan's backyard? So that's what we're gonna do.
I don't know about everyone else here, but I personally don't want my home, they can throw it in the trash at that point, that's how I feel. And I live on a lake, and I bought my house on a lake, community, I'm looking at this, it's really the lake, pretty much less than 5 miles from I got a video of my husband taking my kids to school the next day, driving through the fog, when you break those speed bumps in place, I have, my daughter works at my urgent care, they would not take people who complain of Biolab issues, they wouldn't even take you, to see you, so I feel like for me, luckily I'm a person that has a rental property, and I was able to go to my rental property, and I haven't been back to my home since, and I don't want anything to do with it, I have a grandchild, and two, that was there, when she had to drive, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, I'm so passionate about being compensated for my property because I bought my property, and I know it's school fed, and I don't know what's in there, I don't know what I'm drinking out of the water, because our reservoir is open, our reservoir is not, so it's like, it's so heartbreaking, you know, to have to leave my home.
Well, one of the things we'll be looking at is your homeowner's insurance policies to see whether or not we can make a claim and allege that your house is a constructive loss because it's been so contaminated. Because if we can get your insurance companies to deem your house a total constructive loss, then we would get them to do a lot of testing, right?
I
Which,
took water samples. I took water samples of that lake that they could do. I took water samples of my daughter's pond because she also lives in the lake too. She was out, but she has a pond on her property. So we took that water sample, which has been undisturbed and untouched.
yep.
So I have really good samples.
Yep, well, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take that stuff, and if you own your home and you are one of the people looking for a way out, I know I can look at you and say, if you're sick, be patient, but what we can try to do is help you find a way out of your home by using your homeowner's insurance, forcing them to come test your house, and really pushing the idea that your home is a total constructive loss because it's contaminated and it can't be decontaminated and get you fair market value for the day of the fire. Not today, but what it would have been had the fire not occurred. And that's something that David and I have been talking about, because that's David's wheelhouse. And so that's one of the ways we can try to provide you a more immediate help. The other thing that we do is, if you're sick, is we get you in touch with some of the doctors that can help you with detoxing vitamins and sauna blankets and carbon shower heads and simple things that can help you, you know, get rid of, flush the toxins from your body and make it safer.
You can't flush dioxin. Dioxin will flush, you can do heavy metals and stuff.
I know.
like that.
I know. But there's some of the chemicals that are in there that we can. The problem with dioxins is that they're there and then they're the dirt and the ground. You can clean your house, but every time you walk back in, you're just
Coming back in
walking
the
those
house.
chemicals right back in because they're in the dust.
Well, I'm itching to ask this question. Shouldn't Rockdale County be invited to the party as well?
Yeah, but see, what'll happen is when I make my phone calls with all of you, so when I first went to East Palestine, I didn't come with any preconceived notion. What I did is I had hour-long conversations with everyone, and I said, tell me your story. Tell me what happened. And then after listening, really listening, what I found out was I had a lot of people say, you're the very first person who said, tell me your story. We had lots of lawyers come down and they said, sign here, but none of them said, tell me your story. I want to know who you are. I can't represent you if I don't know who you are. If I don't know what you had before the fire, how do I understand what you lost?
And see, Rockdale County didn't even evacuate us.
all right? And so you'll start to I'll start to ask those questions.
We
And
sure
by
do.
asking those questions, I can start to put a list together of who should be invited.
What they said they did. They actually said it on their very first podcast. The very first thing that they put out when they were shutting down roads and evacuating at like 8 something in the morning, 8, 9 o'clock. They actually said my road, but they never came to our house.
Mm-mm.
My friends called
That's not-
and told me and heard it on the news and woke me up. And then when we left, we couldn't go out one way. We had to go out the other way. And they've already shut everything down. Cops were everywhere.
Yeah.
And they would let us go out, but they wouldn't let us come back in.
Yeah, well, in East
Mhm.
Palestine, they evacuated 2 miles only when they did the big blast. If I showed you a picture, it looks like an atomic bomb mushroom that went over them. And what they did is if you were more than 2 miles, you could stay. And then in order to help the people who could stay, because all the shops were closed, they would let all like the Uber Eats people come in so they could deliver food.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I knew Rockdale County was full of it when Oz Nesbitt said, I'm quoting, he said, don't listen to these backyard scientists.
Yeah,
This is when
yeah.
it was known that Scott Smith was a real scientist and he was checking it out. So when he made that statement, I was like, okay, these guys are criminals.
Yeah.
And they're hiding something, they're hiding something.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. Well, see, yeah. It's,
I have a quick
yeah.
And my
Hold on. Yes.
I have a quick question. I wanted to just know, you had mentioned that you can that we can actually put into our claim, the value of the house the day of the accident. But I also want to know, can we also put in the claim how much money it's gonna take us to move into another house? Because see, the market right now, when I bought my house, I only paid $126.
It doesn't matter what you
But
pay.
right, but I'm just telling you, I only paid that, but my house increased, the
Right.
value increased. And so right now, like, I'm not in a position that I can just leave.
Right.
I can't even sell the house and then go because
And get another house.
I
right
can't
there.
afford the house a house comparable to the home that I'm in today's market. So that's also an inconvenience and it's a problem. It's an assault on us because we have to move into a market that is not favorable to anybody.
I know.
And so, and nobody's gonna buy our homes.
No, we want your houses to, we want the insurance company to say your houses have to be destroyed.
Oh, okay.
And that they have to, and that they have to, in other words, we don't want anyone to be put in the position of, we don't want you to have to say to yourself, I want out, but how do I, in good conscience,
Get out.
sell my house to somebody else?
Yeah.
And so the alternative is you make the insurance claim and you say to them, I can't live here and you can't sell this and I can't sell it to somebody else. So therefore, it has to be, and you have all your household furnishings that you can't take.
What do you do about renting?
Oh, Lord, that's.
Huh?
What do you do when somebody's renting?
There's no claim to be made. It's
Yeah.
just really you gotta go rent someplace else. You don't have a homeowner's claim, but remember, you have a general damage claim. You have a story to tell. And part of what you guys all lost was home and what home means. And the PTSD you feel from having lost your home. And we understand all that. But I want you to hear me. The Keenan Law Firm does not file a lawsuit till the case is ready for trial.
But doesn't that have to be within 2 years?
Yeah, and we will be. Don't miss. But if you're looking, the class action lawyers already filed their lawsuit. Okay? They don't know how many of you have told them what's wrong with you. How many of you have they called to say, are you sick? How sick are you? Okay. Well, what'd you lose? How much are your business losses? We want all that information before we file. So we're not chasing our own tail.
Can we switch? So if Margaret, this
Yes.
is the other thing that.
Yeah, nobody, hey, you can hire me and fire me too. As a lawyer, you have the right to switch to any lawyer that you want to. You have a choice. That's all I'm saying to you, is you have a choice. I'm offering you an alternative. You'll have to take it.
But I thought Rockville County said that you have to be a part of the class action.
No.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to share personal experience and knowledge. A class action lawsuit is not beneficial because you just suffer what I suffer. Everybody's spending months, in this budget and everybody, it's not like you get this, you get more, you get that. I've experienced that. Also, I had a situation where there was a class action lawsuit. I decided that I didn't want to be in a class action lawsuit because of my injuries and pain I was going through, and it was something that was national. So I contacted them from Chicago. I'll never forget my dad, when they had accidents, they would contact them. Warren was all over the bit. So when I contacted them, they had class action issues. And when they settled, I was settled with so then I downloaded and sent it out. So class action that I this kind of individualized according to the findings are.
And what they'll do is wait, the class has to be certified. To be certified, it has all these requirements. So what they did in Palestine is they settled it before they had to go through the certification process. And then what they did is they settled the property damage part of the whole thing. And they attached the defense expert who said, I tested all your houses, you're all fine. Nobody's sick. No, I swear to God, that's what it said. It said, I tested around all your houses and you're all fine. So they attached the defense expert's opinion, and then they made these offers for like $25,000 to everyone. So that's what they did. I'm not saying that's what they'll do here, but I don't know how they'll proceed with your injury claims in any other way. And it really was all based on distance. Which is why I want y'all to stop telling me how far away you were and just tell me, are you sick? Did you lose something? Did you lose a home? Did you lose a business? What does it mean? Is it a business you built your entire life only to have to shut the doors and you can't go through with them? Talk to me about what you lost, not how far away you are.
Is there any possibility of either the insurance claim or the insurance premiums increasing or being dropped? Because we have a house that's very difficult to find insurance for because of the size of the home. Is that,
Well,
can they do that?
There, I can tell you, there's a chance you're gonna get dropped because you're in the middle of a toxic exposure in your house. So it depends, we have told you what our goal is, and the goal is to, if you want, is to get you out.
Can you share how it works with your class action?
I can't hear you, sorry.
Can you share how it works with your class action and decide?
Well, here's, the class action if you're in the class action, this class action may go on for another year or year and a half before they put out what the settlement is. And at that point, you can decide to formally opt out or stay in the class action. The only difference between all that is I would hope that I had my lawsuit filed long before that ever happens. And that the biggest issue for us is we would not have been able to talk to you, get you the medical care, we will have what happened in East Palestine happening here again, where we are playing catch up fast. And it's not that we can't, because we did. It's just that there might be a better way. That's all.
So you would have to continue with the class action?
No, I'm not gonna turn anyone away. I would never, if somebody came to me and they wanted help, I mean, let me tell you, we had a deadline. You had to sign up with us in East Palestine. If you look around and ask, who was the one who violated the deadline? Because people called me, they told me their stories. What was I supposed to do? Tell them, no, I can't help you? Of course I found a way.
Well, that's what Biolab did to us.
Yeah, well,
That's what they tried to do. They
I-
tried to do
I-
that.
Wouldn't mind December.
They don't
I did
remind
not-
them of 2 years.
I did not turn anyone
Remind
away.
them.
I did not.
I got bronchitis, but I've had it for a couple of weeks. I hopefully it go away. I'm also being evaluated for possible thyroid cancer. You know, I'm 72, you know, so shit happens when you get older too. You know, the one thing that came to mind is, Norfolk Southern has to do with pockets on Biolab list.
Here's what I will tell you. At 72, you are more vulnerable than somebody who's younger. Bronchitis is from dioxin exposure in your lungs. Thyroid cancer is one of the cancers from toxic exposure. I would not be so quick to chalk it off as it being just your age.
I mean, I've had breast cancer too, that was before this happened.
But I still would not be so quick to chalk it off to just your age. I would make sure that you saw someone who was very familiar with toxic exposure and ask the right questions to make sure that you know.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I don't have thyroid cancer and the bronchitis goes away, then I'm okay.
But the bronchitis is definitely from, unless you've had chronic bronchitis your whole life,
No.
remember that these toxins attack the lungs. Bronchitis, a constant cough, those are typical symptoms from toxic exposure.
Even though it's 6 months later, I didn't get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
the toxins haven't gone away. You've had day after day after day after day after day after day of exposure. You're being exposed daily.
David gets asthma too.
Well, some people have a different tolerance level than others. The scientists know that.
And I have an organic garden that
And those are the stories.
And one of the things that we're hearing is that in this area, whether it be Conyers or Conyers and Covington, it is one of the highest areas of thyroid cancer in the state. And I'm wondering, from what I'm seeing, like with people getting sick, I'm wondering, could it have been from those last 4 fires and, I mean, other things too, but, so that's one of the things that we're taking a look at on how do we build our systems to not go down.
Well, they know how to do it. They just have to do it.
I mean, how does the person, the being, how do we?
You can't. You can't. It's just everybody has to enforce the safety rules. Everybody has to behave safely and spend the money to protect the communities for which they do this work in.
Yes, it definitely has to be done.
And if they don't, then you have to have the governing organizations that have teeth that force them to do it, because these things have long-term health ramifications for everyone. They have the ability to change your genetic makeup.
They're doing it.
So I have vocal cord dysphonia that has been clearly medically identified as related to the Biolab fire. I wasn't hoarse like that. I tell people this is my Biolab voice. It's been like this since 2 days after the fire. And I'm on 6 different medications and I have to do speech therapy. We filed a class action lawsuit and exactly what you said. They didn't ask for the furnace filters. We have all of that. There's been no question really about the effects in terms of the property damage class action lawsuit. Clearly, we have personal injury. Back to Ms. Turner's question, do we have to get out of the class action lawsuit in order to go, because they said they're gonna file both class action and individual lawsuits on our behalf. That's what we were told. So my question is, and I won't identify the firm, we can talk privately, but what's our next step? Because I'm not happy with, I asked recently, what's the status of the medical injury claim, personal injury claim? And I was told that they're still trying to decide if there's a valid basis to file a claim. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, what's our next steps in terms of, I don't wanna deal with them with personal injury at this point, if they're still trying to decide whether there's people that are injured in, there's 900
I am
people that.
telling you that they're going to come back and say, we cannot prove causation for your injuries. Please take $30,000 and consider yourself lost.
So, no, I'm.
So what you can do is, you can decide to sub them out, and we can tell them that you are subbing them out at this point for your personal injury
That's
claim
what I,
only.
okay. Thank
So
you.
that we can get working with you to get to the right people and get this matter moved. Because I guarantee you, you will meet Caitlin, that's my daughter-in-law, extremely talented, extremely brilliant. She sounds a little like you, she's hoarse right now,
Yeah.
because she's an actress, so she's in Spitfire Grill, which is funny, because she's so young. I said, do you even remember the movie? She goes, I had to Google it and watch it. I said, "Oh." So she's got one of the leaves, so that she gets away. So she's been singing, right? She's been singing, and now she can't talk. So, but yeah, so anyways, you'll meet her, she's lovely, and anytime you need me, you will find me. And I will never answer in that way, ever.
Thank you.
I just want to, make sure that understanding, you can't, you in the class action, and then for that, for a situation, and also, how.
You know what?
No,
The Lord always tells me why
I
He
have
made me
lots
such
of
a
clients that stayed in East Palestine, they opted to stay at the personal injury
Now I
court.
understand why a whole lot of stuff that
They
was
opted to stay at the property down there.
because I want to stay. This is the fifth time this place has burned. So it's like, nobody want to stay there. Nobody want to stay here. She was quoting me when I said to her, I said, I cannot. I told her, I was like, I cannot in good conscience sell my house to anybody without disclosing the fact that this happened.
The other thing I'll tell you, just as a side, in East Palestine, we are the only firm that did not get sent back to federal court. We are the only complaint that got filed, the only complaint that got filed in state court that stayed in state court. Everybody else who filed in state court got removed to federal court, back in front of the judge. No one wants to be in front. The one who settled the class action, that's so hostile to everyone, except for us. Not us, because we sued all the right people to make sure we stayed in state court. And I am so proud of all of us for having come up with a strategy that kept us in state court.
That's good.
So you guys decide what, I hope you haven't felt hard pressed. I just saw what happened in other places, and I just don't want it to happen to you.
So Biolab is owned by Kick, and
Uh-huh.
Kick is owned by Centerbridge Equity.
Yep.
Who all gets included in the lawsuit?
Oh, everybody we can find. Every pocket we can find. Every single pocket.
We have,